You're listening to White Noise with your host, Drip, 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 Drip.
We're back. White Noise Year 2, Episode 4. As always, I'm your host, Davis, aka Drip, joined by Cal, producer, founder of Black Wrestling, as we celebrate 6 years this week.
Years.
Again, did you think 6 years in there'd be a white boy on the show, and then two, a whole umbrella of spinoff shows like Something Else, Black Watch,
I'll say
Bulls
this:
in a China Shop?
when we started back with BRP, there was no thoughts of even being something that would be on YouTube, let alone having enough people and the time to do all these different things. I'm not surprised though. I think there's so much that we get into, and there's so much that's going on that it's hard to get through everything that we need to talk about on the show, and B, there's no way that we're just gonna that we can end these conversations with the 2+ hours that we give people on the show every week. It just made sense, and because we were making inroads to that stuff anyway. I'd say it was maybe a year or so in when we started doing the we would always do extra episodes, whether it was like for the BRP 50 or the year end stuff. But when we specifically were doing like the Black History Month stuff with the delegation, there was always an idea of giving people more than just what we're doing weekly, and with the power of the internet, the power of people giving people the opportunity to support directly, support creators directly. I think we're on the road to WrestleMania right now, and it'll be a year since we started the Patreon, and being able to have that extra space and do things that we can't normally do on the show or on the YouTube channel under the umbrella is dope, because it doesn't hinder the creativity. And if anything, I don't want to say a lot of this stuff is practice drip, but a lot of the stuff that we do here is because there were ideas for the show that we couldn't expand upon, or vice versa. I'll try things out here and then learn how to incorporate it in the show, or learn how to perfect and refine things that we're doing weekly on Black Wrestling. I didn't get my background ready at all. I'm sorry. That was a lot of talking. I apologize.
No, it's all right. Again, this show wouldn't be here if, again, like you said, you weren't standing by a trash can on a BlackBerry.
Trash can, that's facts.
And then ended up with
I'm gonna take a
fam.
I'm not that far from that area. I could get. I should take a picture. It's legit. I mean, it's this little random ass, just like office building, but they had there was a side exit. There was a parking lot. It was like it was maybe like 2 or 3 sets of cars apart, and there was like a larger part on the other side. But there were trees, and there was like a dumpster, and there was nothing else in that area. And I would just like walk around that shit. But like some days, if I wanted to make sure A, that it wasn't too windy, and B, that people coming out to like smoke or whatever wouldn't see me, I would be like right in that little area. This is a pad. Like I would print out Wrestling Inc. Like if there were specific stories I was trying to reference or whatever. Yeah, I was creating content and then stitching that into a podcast off the BlackBerry a while ago. You
got to go back and take a picture and then make that your background. That's your digital background.
It's a 5-minute drive from my house. I kid you not. It's very close. Anyway, I was gonna say, what are we talking about this week?
Well, real quick, after we ended last week's episode, something kind of happened a few hours later. We have a Goss Watch update.
Gosling update. It's been a minute since we've had a Goss Watch.
So this is according to dailymail.com. Outrage as Ryan Gosling's movie The Fall Guy closes down Sydney Harbor Bridge to film action scene, causing major traffic delays across the city. Quote, "It's a nightmare."
What? Who said that? It was just somebody's concern.
Residents.
I'm trying to go to the store. Yeah, they couldn't get around. The Fall Guy.
Ryan Gosling's new film, The Fall Guy, which we've talked about when we were talking about The Gray Man, and it was announced that David Leitch, who directed Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, the Bullet Train, and he was the co-director of the first John Wick. He and Ryan Gosling are teaming up to do a film version of the 80s TV show The Fall Guy, which has an all-star cast: Winston Duke, Emily Blunt, Stephanie Hu, and a bunch of other
and they're already
people.
They're already pissing people off. The movie's going to come out. That's the movie that fucked up the railway for a week or two or whatever. Like,
well, here it's the iconic bridge was closing both directs from 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. on a Sunday, while the cycleway and footpath was closed from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Damn.
The KL Expressway walkway was closed from 2:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Frustrated Sydney residents have taken to Twitter to blast the production for causing major traffic delays across the city.
Damn, Gosling, you fucked up. I was going to make it up.
Here's a quote. "I just want to know how much they paid the government for such an inconvenience," another tweeted, while another added, "Surely the movie technology, this could have been filmed elsewhere and then rejigged to appear as if filmed on the Harbor Bridge."
The one time where somebody wanted to be CGI'd, because they got to get to work that morning. People do not want to be inconvenienced, and it was weird working in New York and seeing just whole sections of blocks blocked off because they had prop shit and trailers and everything. It does happen.
Yeah, I mean, did you say one time you saw Mr. Robot being filmed or something?
I was,
because there are not a lot. I mean, because it's very rare to do the high, I think, production tax. But to film in New York City, it does happen. But like, it very rarely are productions, unless it's a high scale quality. Yeah. I mean, filming in actual New York.
Shutting down certain areas in New York is crazy. But there was a VH1 show called The Breaks. I did an interview. I interviewed a number of the cast members from that show, actually.
The Mac Wild show, right?
Yeah, the Mac Wild show.
Okay.
Did I talk to Mac? I may have talked to Mac. I have to go back to the archives. But they were filming in a restaurant that day, and I caught the train, and then I had to walk to the area, and you could tell it was a set, you know what I mean? But it was because, and as a matter of fact, because Wood Harris was in it, and there were like trailers set up, and I walked down I was walking down the block, and I looked, and he was like in the trailer, which was sad because I saw him, but then he was supposed to be one of the people I was supposed to interview that day, and they told me he wasn't going to be available. I was like,
and you only wanted to ask the Wire questions, right?
I mean, well, it's funny. God, it's funny because he's somebody that I've seen in a lot of things, and I love the rim. I just have the generational conversation about him, especially now. He's low key kind of an OG for some of the people. I would have met. I would love to have that conversation, but sometimes things don't happen. But you would be shocked at how much a movie or a TV show set could ensnarl not just the foot traffic, but the driving traffic around the city block or two.
Yeah, and the stunt looks kind of crazy, like he's holding on to something.
It's at night.
No, it seems like it's early in the morning during the day, like early. Yeah, so
they got to set up and then wait for the sun to rise a certain way and whatnot. Yeah, damn. Gosling.
But there was another rumor regarding one of the patron saints of white noise, one of the faces on White Noise Mount Rushmore. He was allegedly being rumored for the Fantastic Four movie that Marvel's kind of making. This rumor, I think, has nothing. Ryan Gosling.
Watch.
I think there's nothing really to this. The guy because this is by one of those like MCU direct accounts on Twitter,
Oh,
and I never
yeah.
believed those things.
No.
And the guy who was being attached to having the rumor said it's old. There's not much to it. Obviously, they would like to have Ryan Gosling in anything.
Of course.
But it made me think, like, who would he play at Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Doom?
They'd probably have him play Johnny Storm or something like
I don't
that.
think at this age Ryan Gosling's signing up to play.
It's all CGI.
Storm. But Johnny Storm is a young man's character. Like,
if you make him a young man's character,
we're to dealing me, like, the perfect Johnny Storm right now would be like Joe Keery from Stranger Things.
If they're dealing, you got to remember, we're dealing with time right now. We're not. It's not just multiverse. We're dealing with time.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we're going to get to the Fantastic Four, right?
Yeah.
That means that at least to me, I would assume that the Fantastic Four would probably be some of the most important people to stopping Kang, which to me would mean that Fantastic Four were probably following Kang to me, which means that they've been traversing through time this entire time trying to get to Kang. So to me, it doesn't have to be like a 20-year-old Johnny Storm or whatever, because he's been to the end of the world and back trying to fuck with Kang. It could be some grizzled dude, and with CGI, it could be like, oh, we could tell the story real quick, and they'll just CGI his ass on fucking Tom Holland or some little 17-year-old boy to run around a track real fast. Like they did it with Chris Evans and the Captain. He was a little. Come on,
Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan again were like mid to late 20s. Like that's kind of the role of the Human Torch. Like
what's the line that he says? What's the line that
Flame
he says?
On?
No. What's the line that Captain America says when it
I can do this all day.
I could do this all day. And he's like a little puny fuck, And then he got swollen. He was actual Chris Evans. Like they can do it. They probably won't, but it can happen. We're dealing with time. Anything can happen.
Well, the rumor the last 2 weeks is that they want Adam Driver to play Mr. Fantastic, and I think it would be. I think he's a better Doctor Doom than Mr. Fantastic.
He like Charlotte Flair is a much better heel.
Well, I think he'd say no to Doctor Doom because he's like, I just did this as Kylo Ren. I don't want to do this again. There's a lot of parody there in a way.
Big facts.
Handsome guy who's covered by a mask, even though like he's not hideously scarred as you would think by wearing a mask.
Long monologues and people and mystic arts and all this other
stuff. But as we know with like his Star Wars trilogy, like that was so bungled and fucked up that maybe he would like a second chance to do something similar.
You would have to hope. I mean, because I'm still not 100% on Marvel getting Doctor Doom right. Still has to happen. Like we're not even there. We're not even there at a reveal of Doctor Doom. We've not had it yet. Like we have to entrust that they know what they're doing with that to then say, oh, they're gonna give us a better depiction or anything like that. It could be a real crapshoot. And if they don't think, I would hope that Doctor Doom would be a mainstay bad guy, but I don't know. They're not thinking about things like their stories don't think about keeping bad guy like threats along. You know what I mean? Like there's no room for someone to come back.
Yeah,
they're killing a lot of, which is I guess should be the moral of the story. In the 80s and 90s, there was always somebody slipping out. But I think if they're just getting to Kang, and Kang in the comics is like a little blip, I could only hope that they have an epic plan for Doctor Doom. And I don't know if they're ready for that yet.
Yeah. But I think the thing is like as much as Kang might be a blip in the comics, they've turned the blips into bigger deals. The Iron Mans, the Guardians of the Galaxies, and all of it. So maybe they see someone like Kang being more menacing than some other villains in the comics might be.
They gave it to Jonathan Majors.
Obviously, the trailer shows he is. I mean, the performance in Loki is different than the performance we'll be getting in a few weeks.
That is only a couple of shit. Did I buy tickets? Yeah. I did buy tickets.
I haven't yet, but
I think I'm pretty sure I bought tickets. I didn't tell
another rumor was I
didn't tell my son that I bought tickets yet. I don't think I told him.
Another possible candidate would be like him as Silver Surfer, and there we go with the he just has to lend like his voice because no way he's doing the motion capture, and I guess because he has like that tone to be like he must save the world, like he has that
I am a conscious being, but why am
Yeah.
I here? I
I mean, he
serve
already.
I serve a master, and we kill everyone in the world. But how am I being satiated?
That's why when they said Keanu Reeves should be the Silver Surfer, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect because he could be like, at what world would this
I
happen? Type.
I
Whoa.
I am the most powerful being, but I serve a master.
And again,
Whoa!
that's the thing you said. Like we have Galactus to get to, Doctor Doom, and all that. So the
There's a
next
lot.
10
There's a
years
lot to
are,
do.
and the
Yeah.
X-Men now haven't even shown up. Like think about what the MCU has done so far.
Kevin Feige is just he ain't even sleep. He's just pacing his room every day, all day. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to have to get right and a lot to get to, and who knows how long it's going to take to get to. Oh, I hope I need a I need to see a Galactus movie just for a scene. Oh, this is so dark, but like you know, people in a town and like however he consumes the town, they're just like at the store, buying groceries and shit, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
just like. And like people start flying and it gets consumed, and he's just like and it's like
Wouldn't it be like how in the comics or the cartoon where he just shows like his hands trying to grab Earth as he just like lives in the galaxy? Like
I need to just like we needed that scene where Thanos divided the country in half, and then they took out the one half that they picked to take out. I need to see some consumption of a planet, and then see this man and like just like feel like you remember when every time Thanos got a Infinity Stone on the gauntlet and
that
he
glows, and he's like,
like you need that for Galactus, but it's like he's like it's like and does he take a shit? Like how does Galactus digest an Earth?
I don't know.
I need to see
We'll
it
find
all
out.
at this point. I need to, because if you're not going to take it there, leave it and leave Silver Surfer with him. Anyway.
But no, this week we'll be talking about Darby Allin, the current TNT champion. And I this has been kind of on my mind for a while because Darby Allin is one of my favorites, has been since AEW started. I know there are some lingering problematic elements surrounding Darby Allin. I mean, his previous marriage.
They said he was abusive.
Him and Priscilla Kelly, aka Gigi Dolan. There have been talks that it wasn't the best marriage. Yeah, and that there's a reason that they split up. But also, obviously, his namesake. We've talked about this on the show in the past. It's taken from people who have some Nazi type affiliations or
sometimes influences, leanings.
Yeah,
want to call it. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but I mean, so far, I mean, I try to separate the person from the character we've seen on TV, but I would often say like most of the people in AEW are their characters themselves, and I think he is one of those people. Just in terms of like, again, he is the skateboarder. If you want to put that image,
I was gonna say I was gonna throw it up earlier, but yeah, I like this may be the cover of the episode.
Yeah,
I think that if he was some type of Nazi or something, I'd be very shocked that he would say yes to going to Japan to wrestle in Muda's final match. Like if I'm not saying he is or isn't anything, but I've not for what people tried to were throwing the allegations throwing at him basically because of the name. I barely see him speak, but I've definitely not seen anything that would point me in the direction of, oh yeah, he's definitely on that side of the fence. Because
but you never know. Again, people are
you
quiet.
never know. You really never know. Mm-hmm. But either he's extremely good at hiding that particular part of his life, or it's not actually there. It's not for me to say.
It's the same thing with, and I don't want to get into it, but again, if there were some allegations, I imagine there would be a case open, and AEW wouldn't be quick to put him on TV as consistently as they do. Was the reason why they cut ties with the Jimmy Havocs and other people who would, during the speaking out movement, had allegations and were taken off right away.
Again, the hope is that the due diligence was done before these people were made mainstays. Excuse me, on television.
Mm-hmm. But again, I'm just clearing the air. I know I'm not just going full in like, oh, this person's done no wrong. It's the same thing with a lot of people in wrestling. That's the unfortunate part. Everyone's done something, and that's like, again, this past Monday they tried out Mr. Red and Yellow like they do every time they want to celebrate a milestone, and we all know what he's done.
Over the week, people were talking about somebody with pedophiles in pro wrestling. I don't know who they were referring to.
There were some people who were like GCW wrestlers.
Oh,
not as well known, but yeah, there had been a report about that. But
all the tweets that I saw were comments about a situation, but I never saw any tweets that named names or got more specific.
I think they're just small time names is what they are.
I have to take a look, but yeah, I mean, again, like it's just to say, you're never too far from some type of scandal, controversy, something with a pro wrestler these days that can make you, because it always makes you question: should I still do I still care about this person? Like, you know, you have to ask yourself, you know, what's if this person is as problematic, what's the worth of me still following them?
Mm-hmm. The Chris Benoit, everything, an actor, a musician, anything, like an athlete too. I mean, how many times is, you know, it's, and not just to say like, you know, no one's perfect, so we got to cut people some slack, but unless someone does something truly egregious where like, you know, they should face the punishment that this crime has been committed and all that. It's
right. And sometimes some people, you know, they are just down to cut a tie. You know, like if they didn't like the way the NFL handled the Colin Kaepernick situation, some people are willing to say, guess what? I'm done watching the NFL.
Yeah, for a while I kind of was, because he played for my favorite team and he was my favorite player, and it just happened to coincide with like my team being bad, and like I'm like, well, they also are like doing this guy dirty because they're saying this and that about him when he basically does have a case. Because when you watch these guys on Sunday go 11 for 24 with a touchdown and 3 picks, like, you mean to tell me this guy couldn't do a little bit better and he can't get an opportunity? But that's a whole nother conversation,
a whole nother episode.
But to get into it, like in Darby Allin, what do you think when he showed up in AEW riding his skateboard, his emo boy look?
I remember that secondary. I think when I first saw him in AEW, it was, this guy's gonna kill himself. It was, I'd never, like when I thought they misspoke when they said his move was the coffin drop. Like, wait, what?
You said what?
And then they showed footage of him doing the move, and I said that's the move. He like, I don't want to. It's I dare I say lazy, but like literally, he gets to the top rope and kind of just like,
well, it's like a reverse body splash. Instead of going forward, he's going backwards.
That's a lot of trust. It's a trust fall.
Yeah,
it's an aggressive trust fall.
Well, imagine saying, "Oh my God, he's going for the trust fall."
Yeah, but I think it's all the skateboarding stuff has always been overshadowed to me by how reckless he is with his body, and the one spot when Jake,
that's what skateboarding is too, though.
No, I mean no, punk rock. I grew up when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
There were a crew of skateboard kids that I was really cool with. They taught me about DIY. They taught me about all this stuff, and I drawn on their damn vans and shit. I've seen it. That I get it. So none of that surprises me. But when Jake the Snake is the one who has to go to Darby Allin and say, "Hey, man, you might need to calm down," like it shows me like I never want to see somebody purposefully fuck up the rest of their career. When he did that one spot with Jeff Hardy,
we'll get to that.
Like, it's stuff like that can just be too much. But I bring that up because like that's when I initially started watching Darby and AEW. That was the immediate thing, and it's never really made sense to his style is unorthodox, but the specific recklessness has never made any sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm drawn to him in a way, and I like the character. It's the reverse of like I'm a fan of Orange Cassidy because again, he is the guy with sunglasses, laid back, and is a hell of a wrestler. Darby Allin's kind of like the Yang version of that. Like,
no, 100%,
the guy 100%. In dark with the face paint, and again, hell of a wrestler. And they're these undersized guys. I remember shout out to Sir Wilkins when he was on the show in 2021. he had talked about his mom, and when she tuned into AEW, she's like, a lot of these guys are small. Why are these guys so small now? And I said, like, well, a lot of my favorites, because it's representing me in a way, are like the Tyler Bates, the Leo Rushes, the Adam Coles, the Darby Allins, are, these guys who are only maybe an inch or two taller than me, maybe 20 pounds heavier than me, but it's that, underdog, we're in this new era of the smaller guys being more common than the 6'2", 250 guys.
100%.
And Darby Allin being one of the four pillars. And if you put that image up, I think he is the definitive pillar of AEW. And no offense to the three guys next to him, but to me, he's shown that since the start. I mean, Sammy Guevara, again, has had trouble outside of the ring, but inside the ring, he's not a great promo. His matches can be hit or miss and I'm not saying that in terms of, again, I'm a spot junkie in a way. Like, I do love high spots and all that, but Sammy Guevara's stuff is not over relying on it, but he really doesn't matter unless he's doing the crazy stuff, because he can't put a match together with the basics. I know people probably say the same thing about Darby Allin, but at least he has the technical base to show he can hang with certain wrestlers.
No, facts, I agree.
Jungle Boy, I think, is good too. I just never been the biggest fan. I don't hate him either. It's just I see what people see in him, but he's just like, I think I would take Darby over him. Right. If that's the case. I don't know about you. What do you think about that?
I think that the Jungle Boy is probably the one that has the most potential. I think he could be a very strong babyface. I think he's the one. It's going to take time. Like, the way AEW has been, there's been no shortage of heels. I think it's very easy for an MJF to make a mark. He can talk. He can talk, but I think he can also make people want to see him. And I think he did a great job with that with Cody early, and he's been doing it ever since. Sammy Guevara is perfect spot monkey type wrestling for today's crowd. He's going to do the wildest stunts because he doesn't care the most, you know what I'm saying? And he's down to be a dickhead. Like, and I think he kind of revels in the heat that he gets. And
of course.
And I love the Orange Cassidy Darby comparison. It is definitely into to the Yang. And I think Darby out of these four is probably the one that he could be the biggest poster child. He probably was one of the ones carted out early in terms of how different AEW is. Like, there's not too many federations that have those types of TV deals that are willing to give one of their major singles titles 2 times to a guy like Darby Allin. But I think Jungle Boy, he's a baby face. He's a little baby face, but I think he's got enough talent and he's got the look to be something with a push. I don't know if he's in the Braun Breaker lane right now of like, it's obvious that this person is going to be a star at some point, but we've not seen them do a number of different, like, Jungle Boy's kind of one note. He the crowd does the song
exactly.
He does the wild shit, and he's over like Rover. But we need to see him. I mean, maybe he needs to be somebody that turns on someone, or he needs to be someone that really gets run through the gauntlet on some Bryan Danielson type shit. But I think Jungle Boy, once he gets to that point, and the fans really take him to that next level of, there's no denying that he needs to be the face of the company with the biggest title right now. I think it's once you get him there, it's going to be such a great ride, because he is like, I love my wife. I love women, but he looks like a star. Like, he's got that the hair, the face, like he looks like somebody.
First of all, we can be comfortable here again. Like, the whole point of watching wrestling or movies is you have to, like, hey, that's a handsome guy, that's a good looking guy. Like,
sometimes you'll put somebody over and it's immediately, oh, would you try to fuck him? But like I'm saying, like, this is like, that's like a genuinely, like, for the women, especially the women in that AEW crowd that you see every week on TV, that's the type of guy that they wish that they were taking home.
Oh yeah, well, he's Dylan McKay's son at the end of the day.
Like, he's got great genetics for that role. But yeah, it's interesting to see Darby kind of be given that mantle, because it was fairly early into him being.
Well, that's what I was about to say. It's with him and Jungle Boy being the two faces out of that quartet's four, right? Yeah,
Quartet's four, yeah.
He got the hot start right away, as where Jungle Boy is now in the position to get the big push, because Jungle Boy, I think, again, like, as Fam always made the good point, like, this man should be Jack Perry instead of Jungle Boy. Like, do we really want to root for a Tarzan type guy in 2021, 2022, 2023 now? Like, they've now made the smart decision in the last 6 months to turn him into Jungle Boy Jack Perry, where he is starting to talk instead of being the quiet one, even though he would talk in those promos, because again, he's wrestling with a lucha dinosaur in a way. So, like, but again, they had to pair him with Christian to get him more over, whereas, like, we'll get to Darby Allin and Sting later, but Darby Allin kind of from the start is just, they did a good job building him with, like, his own vignettes, those crazy stunts he would do right before his entrance would play, like these jackass skateboard video type vignettes that would play to put him over. Like, what's this guy's character? He's the guy who will do anything.
Facts.
Physically, because he's got, again, it's not that he has the will to doesn't have the will to live. It's just like, it's all out with him. It's
100%. It's all
the point of AEW. Yeah,
I think it's interesting. I was looking to see, because I felt like Darby Allin, by the time he got to AEW, was more ready to be a guy, and it's interesting to see that Jungle Boy debuted in pro wrestling November 20th, 2015. Darby Allin debuted August 2nd of 2015. So he's only been in the game a couple months longer than Jungle Boy. But when you look at their career, even if you go to the Wikipedia, Darby Allin was doing a couple years at World Wrestling Network. He was already down in AAA.
I never saw him
before he went to Progress.
He was in Evolve, and I never saw him in Evolve prior to AEW. That's again, there was a period in kind of the 2017, 2018 where I was trying to get into Evolve, like, because that was now going to be the stepping stone where people from NXT, they were going to come from Evolve and go straight into NXT,
right? Due
to that relationship that Gabe Sapolsky and Triple H were forming at the time of sharing talent and, you know, using a minor league for the minor league, you know,
right.
But yeah, Jungle Boy and Jack Perry have kind of been those two linked, of like the two faces of the future. While MJF is that far one where, like, he's the complete opposite of Darby in another way, where all he does is talk, never wrestles, and he's gone out and say, like, I won't put my body in the line for your entertainment. So, and I'm not just saying that because of, you know, MJF in the last month and what he's done, but it's like,
no, but that's him, yeah.
But his character and again, like, whereas, like, sure, Darby Allin might not be the best talker, but I think MJF will probably have to do a follow up to the episode we did a few months ago, where, like, what this reign has done to MJF. I think it's exposed those lies in a lot of ways and the lack of wrestling, and when he does, it's not great. That's a whole other thing. But him and Darby were at the front of AEW in the beginning, while Sammy and Jungle Boy had to cook. They were both given kind of mentors early. Sammy Guevara is Chris Jericho's, like, chosen one in a way of, like, to succeed him, until Daniel Garcia came along. And out of those two, it's still kind of obviously Daniel Garcia, I think, is the better of the two.
Daniel Garcia is what does it mean?
It's not by much.
What does it mean to succeed Jericho in terms of what? Having a crew, like the Jericho Appreciation
No, it's just like
Society,
who, like, I think Chris Jericho probably always, because him and Triple H have this heated rivalry.
Right.
Again, Triple H had Randy Orton, right? Like, he had his Sabisco to San Martino. Chris Jericho never really had a protege type person to build up and then maybe one day feud with. So he picked Sammy Guevara right away, and then now Daniel Garcia is maybe another version of that, because Jericho still might be on the fence due to Sammy Guevara's actions in the last 2 years, in terms of, like, again, just him being a natural dickhead, I think has hurt him more as a character than Chris Jericho would like to put over in that way.
I think that there's nobody scraggly enough. Like, it's not a good equivalent. Like, Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko made sense. What was the other one you mentioned?
Randy Orton and Triple H.
Randy Orton and Triple H made sense. That's a legit, like, older god, younger god dynamic. I've been here. We're kind of cut from the same cloth. Like, I'm not saying Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara don't have similarities, but those are two totally different people. The story to me doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying you need a Chris Jericho light, scraggly looking white dude. What Brian Pillman's son doesn't need to be in the Sammy Guevara lane, but I don't even feel like there's been enough of an established this is my right hand man from Jericho on TV. It's a lot of it is implied because Sammy is the second most important person in that group, just in terms of the titles that he holds. But I don't personally feel like
and that's
Sammy's
why,
any
again,
closer.
by being part of the Sex Gods, and again Jericho championing this guy, and like you said, getting the opportunities to be TNT champ, and that's why the whole story of MJF trying to force his way into the inner circle was that the other pillar of the four was trying to overlap this
Jericho.
guy and his I'm saying overlap Sammy Guevara, because those two again are, and by getting, as we talked about with MJF, like how he needed all those old vets to put him over.
Yeah, he needs
when we
these
discuss
people.
that. When we discuss MJF needing the Codys, the Moxleys, the CM Punks, and the Chris Jerichos to make him matter, because the national audience is being told that this guy is the chosen one. Sammy Guevara is kind of the opposite, where like this guy shows up and immediately like no one wants to see this guy. Jungle Boy is now getting to the point where now he's standing on his own. People are going to want to see him. But this pairing with Hook, in my eyes, is probably going to hurt him a little bit more than
he needs to be a singles. Yeah, he does not. He just got out of the tag team feud at Full Gear, right? Like that cage match was it. Let this man build as a singles competitor. He don't need. I get that he has beef with these people, but he needs to be on a singles track. He don't need to be Jungle Hook. We don't need none of that stuff in the near future. Get that away from that man.
And the only thing really that Darby Allin's done, and he's pretty much stood on his own the whole time, but come December of 2020, Steve Borden shows up, and they're immediately paired together. What did you think of this when it happened? I remember we potted about it, but still, it was like,
I mean, I don't remember what I said then. I think like as of right now, it's kind of like, yeah, it makes sense. I think, if I'm not mistaken, at the time, AEW, they were picking up on those contracts, but B,
yes,
they were trying to figure out like again, like the teacher student pairings. Jake the Snake was being paired with people.
Lance Archer. Yeah.
Lance Archer, Tully Blanchard had a group. Arn Anderson,
Sean Spears,
Arn Anderson was being a mentor. Like there were a number of these things going on. So this, at the very least, especially in the bottom photo, the face paint and the way that they're standing and surveying it made sense. This makes more sense than Jericho, Sammy trying to be like these two have a much deeper relationship than the other two have.
Well, that's because you see Sammy Guevara, and like no one ever thought like, oh, this is Lionheart Chris Jericho, who will then transform into the guy who's the Ayatollah of rock and roll, and then the best in the world with the light up jacket. Like no one I think ever sees that trajectory for Sammy Guevara. But what you see Sting and Darby Allin, it's almost again like it's that thing where like, should we reward Tony Khan for being too spot on? Like again, like anyone can put the two guys in face paint together.
It's very obvious.
But when you think about them, like again, like Sting wasn't the wrestler that Darby Allin was, and he was a fiery, high energy baby face. Like he was strength. Darby Allin's the complete opposite. He's the undersized guy in every fight. That's why when Matt would be pissed that he can beat the likes of Brian Cage,
right?
And I'm like, well, and that's what we'll get into too. Like Darby Allin always winning these matches when he's facing like the Ethan Pages or whoever else might be, the Jay Lethals.
They're trying to build them. That's how they.
No, but I mean, like by looking out at him just on the surface level, we always talk about like, I can't believe this person would beat this person in a match. If this was real, and that's why I'm always like, it's not real. That's the point, because Rey Mysterio would lose every match regardless of his skill level, and someone like Omos would be completely unbeatable unless it's someone like Bobby Lashley who can pick up the big guy and has the speed, and all. It's that thing where like Darby Allin again beating the likes of Brian Cage with the hold and all that. It's like, well, he's using everything in his arsenal, like these tricky pinning predicaments, or like in the like no holds barred matches where he'll throw everything. His own body is the weapon. That's why I've always been fond of him as a wrestler. Like he's doing everything he can. I'm not expecting him to do jackhammers and shit to Brian Cage. I'm like he's like, I'm gonna do suicide dive, and then I'm gonna try to do code reds and springboard center type maneuvers. So like everything I can in my disposal is going to make me win this match, and if I do, I don't.
No, yeah, he has that grit, but again, I think the thing with that's why the Sting thing is key. One sec. It's the fact that Sting is supposed to be the person that's like guiding that.
Mentoring.
Yeah, it's like literally taking it. Like, I understand you can do all this stuff and you will throw your body, but chill a little bit and kind of stick to a specific path. And I mean, now Sting was the guy that had to come to the ring and be like, "Fuck yeah, bro, you fucking did it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Get your belt and talk to
That's
your
pretty
people,
much
bro."
for. I think Sting being around is really just to, again, add an extra layer of shine to Darby Allin. It's not much of him being a mentor because he's not going to. Rarely does Darby Allin just do the thing where like he takes a punch and does this thing, like fire up. Like what's good about Darby Allin is like when Samoa Joe punches him, Darby Allin like collapses and is like dead because that's realistic. Like Darby Allin's like, again, he's barely 5'10", 170 or whatever. Like every move should like take him out when he's like. He sells it like death because he's a skateboarder.
But that the thing, Sting doesn't. When Sting talks about their relationship, he's not talking about wrestling at all. A lot of his conversation is about outside of the ring. Working on Darby's mental, and it seems like I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth because Sting wasn't very specific about what he was referring to when I was editing a piece that Seahawk did on him,
yeah.
But it was definitely it was a lot less about wrestling, and it seemed a lot more about
I think given how Sting had his personal troubles and Darby Allin is famously known for being straight edge,
right?
We'll get to that in the CM Punk match as well, but Sting being around Darby Allin, like I said, probably is for those outside of wrestling things, but they did have that great moment a few weeks ago when prior to the Samoa Joe match in Seattle, they had that backstage segment. Mm-hmm. Sting's like, "What do you want me to tell you, Darby? That I don't believe in you? Like everyone else never believed in you?" He was firing up that way, like a manager's supposed to. Because if I tell you I don't believe in you, that's gonna put that fire that you need. And if I do tell you I believe in you, that's gonna bring you down because now you have someone not to let down. It was a great like, what do you want to hear? You got to do this on your own. I can't change it for you. I mean, and more often than not, when you look at it, like every time Darby Allin's had a pay-per-view match, with the exception of him and MJF one-on-one, it's been him and Sting teaming up to face Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal recently, and even when it was Sammy Guevara and Sting and Darby Allin, like they teamed up in that 6-man to face Andrade and I believe Private Party. But yeah. I think it's a pairing that's helped compared to all the other pairings that we said, like the Lance Archers and Jake the Snakes, Tully Blanchards, and what was Sean Spears, then FTR, then the Pinnacle. Like, it's the pairing that's made the most sense, obviously, due to their. And this is Crow Sting we're talking about. I don't think Blade Runner Sting would have been a good fit for Darby.
Yeah, well, again, I mean,
he has the blonde hair. Maybe he would have never.
I mean, that top image specific, like when you saw that, and when they do that, it makes so much sense because I think something like that even it fits it because Darby doesn't really speak. Darby definitely pays attention, but Darby's also working on his own shit. So a lot of his stuff is more reserved, more I was going to say diabolical, but it's more like thought. It's more thought out. It's more
when he does speak. That's why I say I do love those. A person who's not a pillar, just like Orange Cassidy isn't, but I think if I had my liking, the pillars would be Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Ricky Starks, and that fourth one I would be tough. I guess if I had, it can't be Jamie Hayter now, but like I wouldn't want to put Britt Baker in because again I don't think Britt Baker is good, but the way Ricky Starks cares about the overall of his character, again, like the greatest vignettes in AEW are his prior to his entrance when he's the photo shoot type, the cologne commercial inspired. Darby Allin has the opposite again, like he's doing these crazy stunts with a skateboard or a car, and they're in black and white. He's in a body bag being dragged across the city. It's again he cares about the overall character and the details about it, like, and that's why I think he stands out so much compared to everyone else. Maybe that's why Tony Khan has always had this fondness and gave him the shot at by being TNT champion. I think Cody did as well. If you put up to the image of, I think Jon Moxley and Cody Rhodes were not detrimental. instrumental in building Darby Allin as a key star. John Moxley and him kind of had this older brother, little brother relationship in a way of like a guy who will go all out, give his blood, sweat, tears to win. And prior to Blackpool Combat Club, I had thought about this maybe in early 2020. Like, John Moxley and Darby Allin should start a stable. Like, and I just think
that's actually really smart.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and they should call it like the Death Riders, because that's what, you know, John Moxley is in Japan. I'm like, at the time that'd make, and I think I had Chris Dickinson, who's in GCW. I like these guys who
for fantasy book, and here he go.
Yeah, well, that's what we do at White Noise. We build the stories that will never
True
exist.
indeed.
And I'm like, it would make sense because remember Darby Allin and John Moxley had that good match on like the 5th or 6th Dynamite where he gave him the paradigm shift from the top rope and fucking killed him.
Yeah.
But there was that spot in the middle of the match where he put Darby Allin in the body bag and just like kept stomping. I'm like, there's a good like rivalry here, but there's also a good like one day these two will team up and will be like a great like you know brother type pairing. And Darby Allin challenged for the AEW title at one point when John Moxley was champ. But I'm like, Darby Allin, I don't think would be a bad fit for what we now know as the Blackpool Combat Club. But I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I need to take a look and see who all's in it. But it would be interesting. It would just make the group totally different because he's not a shooter.
It wouldn't be as. Well, he does have that. He was an amateur wrestler in high school. He can kind of. That's one thing about Darby Allin. He can wrestle, but he does the high spot stuff. He can grapple with.
I got to see it because. But the other thing is that shit is cool, but he's also little. And I don't know how strong. I'm saying like at a certain Bryan Danielson. I don't remember what the name of the move is. Is the Romero special? Is one of them shit?
Yeah.
Or he picked up Bandito and he was twisting him up and shit. Like he looks like he's strong enough to at least twist up Bandito, stand in that position. I don't know who Darby Allin could legit.
Well, that's the difference of like being short and built. And then being short in my size, like someone like Bryan Danielson and Bandito. Bandito's barely 5'8".
Yeah,
like he was jacked, like
yanking him.
But yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And the other person was Cody, and this is probably one of the only times I'll praise Cody in AEW was the story that he had with Darby Allin off and on, where like they had that first match at Fyter Fest. I went to the 20-minute draw.
Yeah,
and
he
that's
was
like,
taking him to his limits. Yeah,
and that's like, is Cody Rhodes going to do what he wants to do in terms of like put the young talent over? He did it with MJF. He did it a few other times until he was TNT champ. And during the height of Black Lives Matter, he just buried all the black wrestlers, if you remember correctly. Again, I'll never let that down. Remember. Again, Mark Quinn, Sonny Kiss, Ricky Starks, he knocked them down while we're, in the middle of this, what with, his wife standing ringside. Like, never forget that. Yeah. That's y'all's king, apparently.
Yeah, y'all king.
And I ain't talking about the Conqueror either.
Damn, bars.
But they faced off in the TNT title tournament, and he beat Darby Allin. Cody Rhodes becomes the first TNT champion, and they run it back later in 2020. And Darby Allin dethrones Cody's second reign because he had lost it to Brody Lee prior. And you see it right here, Cody Rhodes, bending the knee in a way to Darby Allin being the new TNT champion. And I've always said this, that Darby Allin is the best TNT champion in the history of AEW.
Why? Is it because he defends it all the time? What's the distinction?
He's a fighting champion, and to me, that's what the TNT title is supposed to be. It's defended weekly against the likes of whoever, faces, heels, all of it, and that's what Darby Allin did the first reign, and that's what he's starting to do right now. They talked about this past Wednesday when he faced Buddy Matthews. Tony Schiavone's like, this is his 4th defense in 4 weeks. Like he's has since getting this title, he hasn't stopped defending it. And if I look up here on Cage Match, shout out to Cage Match for always having
the stats,
the information. But Darby Allin's title reign the first time was 186 days. That's the longest title reign
for the TNT title.
Yeah, and he had 8 successful title defenses against Brian Cage, Joey Janela, Scorpio Sky, John Silver, JD Drake, Matt Hardy, Jungle Boy, and 10 before losing it to Miro.
Okay. Right.
And the second person with the longest title reign is Wardlow, and Wardlow only had 7 successful title defenses. Again, what's the whole thing we talked about Wardlow's title reign? It's very mediocre, unmemorable, sparsely defended, and then he ended up losing it to Samoa Joe in a 3-way. But like I said, already Darby Allin has had 4 title defenses since winning the title on January 4th, and is now January 20.
About to say, he spent the whole month defending that damn title. That's dope.
And when we talked about Ricky Starks being the prime candidate for a TNT title, Darby Allin is as well. And that's why I said I would group those two as the four pillars of AEW, because I think Ricky Starks would have the capacity to defend the TNT title. We did a whole episode about it. Check that out in the archives about Ricky Starks would be able to carry a weekly feud or a monthly feud with the TNT title as a heel or as a babyface. He's shown his strengths as both now. I mean, this babyface, I say it's pretty good, but he obviously is better when he's the shit talking heel with the open collar shirts. But him as a babyface is just as good because you don't want to boo this guy either.
He's got really good babyface promos, and
it's just a different type of smack talk with him as a babyface too. But it still works.
That's that soul. That's that southern. That's that Dusty Rhodes he taps into when he's cutting the babyface promos. But he's such a good heel promo. You could do whatever.
And does that matter? I think Orange Cassidy too. Again, the other part of my four pillars is that he's, since being All Atlantic champion, he defends that title. I'm not meant to shit talk, the likes of MJF or Roman Reigns, the world champions that never defend the titles.
Right.
But does that matter to you that these mid-card titles are defended on the regular?
Well, again, with all this Muda stuff going on, I've been thinking about, growing up, and that TV title, just the NWA television title, just like the ECW television title, where every time I would tune into in their shows weekly, they were usually on the line for a 15-minute match. I think there are, just like the Intercontinental title would always get some love on a consistent basis with the WWE. I think those mid-card titles are very important to have on a regular basis. I think, especially if they're the work rate ones, if they're the ones that you want to see, those guys who can put on those very consistently dope 15, 20, 25-minute matches, especially on television. Yeah, I think that's very important. I don't know if.
And Cody started that. To be fair, he started that during that first reign of defending this. He was defending at the start of Dynamite every single week.
But that's the thing, like where Darby Allin has 4 title defenses in the 4 weeks he's had the title. He looks like a fighting champion.
Yeah.
When Cody does it, it doesn't look like he's a fighting champion, but it looks like a Cody Rhodes vanity project. And that's what I'm saying. Like
that's what we discussed with the American Nightmare episode. Yeah, it's like this was the guy to show you I am a fighting champion, when it's like, but your style of being a fighting champion doesn't work because his style of wrestling, again, is not made, because I always said he's not a great workhorse like he thinks he is. The work rate isn't there compared to what he says. And that's the thing with, like, when Miro was TNT champ, people were like, oh, this is what we need. It's like, no, he just showed up and squashed the likes of like Lee Johnson and whoever. And that he made that title, that was the start of that title being irrelevant in a way. And Sammy Guevara and Scorpio Sky had a horrible feud where they just trapped this title in between the two of them and shared it back and forth. And that's what killed the title. And we thought Wardlow would kind of revitalize it in a way where, like, again, it's the same as Miro. Like, he's just going to show up and squash guys. And then he got trapped with this Samoa Joe team that served no purpose, except we know Samoa Joe was going to betray Wardlow, obviously, because the tag teams only go one way in AEW, and that's down. Like,
I think if you're going to be a TNT champion, just like the TBS champion, I think those should be the titles that are defended weekly on the shows. I mean, because it's a lot of to hold a belt and say I am the champion of this television network, which is effectively what that is.
And that's where you put that image up of Darby Allin with the tweet by TNT.
Like this is, hold up, let me get the banner off of there, because this is an actual tweet from them. You can tell because it's a gold check. That's what Elon did. That's from at the beginning of the month when he won the title. Like that means something. At least at the very least it should. And you would think that if you're going to be designated as the champion, you're an AEW champion of this channel, I would like to see you defending that title on that channel on a regular basis.
I've always been negative about AEW in terms of, like, they're almost always there. And when you enjoy something so much, you will criticize it more harshly because it's you're trying to defend it without showing too much favoritism. Right. But the fact that the TBS title is always defended on TNT and the TNT title is always defended on TBS is one of the stupidest things Tony Khan consistently does. The fact that Rampage is the Jade Cargill show, because I think, not to besmirch her name, she wants that solo airtime for the women, because the Britt Bakers, the Tony Storms, the Jamie Hayters, and
They had the
Sarez
other
dominate on the main show.
Right.
But again, what's that channel again?
TBS.
Exactly. So like, there's something that needs to be done in that way. But at least Darby Allin would defend the title when, again, that first one he was on TNT because they hadn't made the switch yet. But he had the first defense against Mike Bennett on TNT, and same thing with this second week he had Juice Robinson on TNT as well. And like I said, like he just came back from Japan and faced Buddy Matthews this week, and that was a good match. And that's he's giving me these matchups I want to see, much like my favorite wrestlers in AEW. I care about the matchups that you can give me, and Buddy Matthews I'm a fan of. When they brought fucking Kushida as a surprise challenge. Right. Again, we'll talk about Kushida on here one day. I have an episode planned to talk about Kushida in a way, but again, that's a face versus a face. Like who's the villain here? No one. That's the sport aspect of wrestling. Two good guys facing each other, prove who's the best.
The night that was happening, I believe, Inside Baseball, the night that was happening was the night I was recording with something else, and when I mentioned. I want to make sure we do this because it seems like it's going to be a decent AEW tonight.
That was Jay Lethal, Orange Cassidy. That was Bandito, Bryan Danielson, and the main event was Kushida, Darby Allin. I'm like, did Tony Khan read what I would like to see? Like it made
the brain, a little bit. But I mentioned Kushida, and Lovely was like, Kushida. I'm like, yeah, Kushida. Like, it's good to see, but I like that. Just like the Bryan Danielson stuff, I like when it's not just
tethered to a story. It's a match for match sakes. Yeah.
Let's because that's what pro wrestling was when I was growing up. And I'm not, I don't want to be the old man, but like you at a certain point, what this wrestler can do against the 3 or 4 people on the show that they normally wrestle. It's good to A, bring in some talent you've never seen before, and B, give them those types of challenges. I mean, Darby Allin, he's not going to get a match with Kushida out of some of the other people on the roster. So give him that stuff. Let him, figure out, oh, this is a technique I could use here. This is something I can incorporate there. Something could stick and turn into the next phase of his career, but you can only do that when you're mixing it up, and mixing it up as a fighting champion is one of the best ways to bring in, this talent and do that type of stuff.
And as we've seen with, again, one of the 4 pillars, MJF is someone who has to be tethered to a storyline because he has to sink his teeth into picking someone apart. And that's when we did Don't Believe His Lies. Again, I listed all the people who he had these long drawn out feuds with, and that whether that worked or it didn't work. Darby Allin, I think, is someone who doesn't need to be tethered. And we talked about, again, him versus Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. That was dragged out, but we had Ricky Starks show up in the Darby Allin cosplay, making fun of him. And there's something to that effect, like Ricky Starks and him being these 2 guys who are kind of vying for that up and coming spot. Like in 2 years, we're the 2 guys at the top. It's good that right now they can have this backstory in a way of like when we did this in the mid card, we can then bring it back to the
100%.
And that's why the other pillar is Sammy Guevara, who he's had the best chemistry with in the ring wise. And again, they had numerous matches. One was him versus Sammy Guevara in the tournament for the vacant AEW title. My whole point during that tournament was, one, it needed to be no former AEW champions or former world champions at all. I think it just needed to be. I think one side of the bracket needed to be the likes of like Hobbs, Ricky Starks, people who hadn't had a title in AEW or hadn't been a world champion, like how they created it.
Gotcha.
Or someone like Darby Allin, who I think Darby Allin should have won that vacant tournament and become the AEW World Champion. And then MJF could have taken that title off him. And I think it would have mattered a whole lot more compared to what they ended up doing with MJF, making him this baby face, only to then betray that. And William Regal, again, as we talked about that whole story, the day after it happened, you're like, this was stupid. Like they were almost making this guy Stone Cold type babyface who's supposed to be a heel, but he's a heel again. He's taken that title off Darby Allin, and I think it would have mattered so much more. Or even Danielson, which is what they're doing now, but still, with Danielson, I think they would have ran that William Regal play regardless.
100%. 100. It would have been easier at that point, I imagine, too. But yeah, who knows? I don't know, man.
But when we talked about Orange Cassidy, and I had the image of him holding up the title, would you believe Darby Allin is AEW World Champion because you didn't believe Orange Cassidy?
It's kind of tough. I think realistically, I MJF is a champion right now. I could see Darby Allin beating MJF for the title. I don't know about some of these other people. It's not him being.
That's how I would book it. I would have it if MJF is supposed to hold his title for 9 months, regardless of how the ratings do or what he does. He beats Moxley. He beats Ricky Starks. He beats Danielson. He probably beats Wardlow if Wardlow comes back because I think he has an injury right now. He beats Jungle Boy. I think Darby Allin has got, unless it's Kenny Omega, who wants to, or again Hangman Page if he tries to get back in the top spot. Adam Cole, now that Adam Cole's back, there are some options, but I think Darby Allin's the perfect person to throw into MJF and become AEW World Champion in my fantasy booking. But
I'd love for it to be Bryan Danielson, but I think it's going to be Omega. I think Kenny Omega is going to V-trigger the shit out of MJF, and he's not going to be able to recover. It'll be the most grueling match he's had too. That Wrestle Kingdom 17 match low-key made me a more of a Kenny Omega fan than I've ever been.
What about Will Ospreay? Wow.
Well, the thing is, like,
takes two to tango, Cal, and he was tangoing the fuck out of that match.
When Will Ospreay is not doing like the spectacular flips to do a kick to the head, which a bunch of moves that I could give a shit about.
You just like that match because when Kenny Omega grabbed his head and put it through the table, you're like, Kenny Omega got that dog in him.
He said, "Here's Johnny," and that shit was the
he's ruthless.
Yeah, he came back with a vengeance, but it like I again, and I know the story of the match, but like I just saw him fucking sell like a dog for 20-25 minutes in that match.
But Darby Allin does that too. Is that something? Is that we hate about Darby Allin matches in a way that he's just this ragdoll that gets like thrown around
after a while? Like I think I enjoyed the Samoa Joe match more than I thought I would, but like that's the thing. Like
the first or the second, because that first one, remember Samoa Joe just beats the shit out of
him. No, the most recent one, the one where he beat him for the to get the TNT title back. It wasn't just I'm gonna let you throw me around. Darby was pointed in his chaos, and I'm gonna do these topes and I'm gonna do these dives and everything, but it's because I need to wear you down early. Like, you know, you can use that stuff to tell a story. And I think they did a great job of that, at least in the opening. I need to go back and watch the rest of the how it ended, but I remember specifically being like, "Wow, he's doing a lot of shit to this man in the beginning," but the risk that he was taking made sense. He was home, but it all made sense compared.
And that's
to some
me
of the
why
stuff.
I'm a fan. Like that formula for his matches is why I'm a fan, because like obviously unless he's facing like Sammy Guevara, he can only do so much against Samoa Joe.
Right.
So he does have to do that thing where like I have to do these dives, and he'll do some holds too, but like I have to, again, my arsenal is my body, like me throwing myself at you, because again, I'm not going to pick you up for an F5 or anything like that.
Especially Samoa Joe, but that's the double-edged sword, right? Because, you know, he has to use his body as a weapon, but at some point that shit's going to snap back on him, and that's what I fear.
Yeah, and that's when you get into the Jeff Hardy match, if you put that, because the two matches that in a way made the most sense for him is by him and CM Punk having this DIY straight edge personality, and when CM Punk came back, that was a perfect opponent for him to face, because again, Darby Allin could sell amazingly for CM Punk, who seemed gassed about 10 minutes in, because, you know, got to get back on that horse. This is the first ride. But when I rewatched it for the CM Punk episodes we did, I thought it was still good, because I liked it at the time. I still think it's a good match from All Out.
I may need to run that back. I don't remember. I remember the match, but I don't remember too much about.
But and it's still like you said about Triple H in the 2016 Rumble. That match with Darby Allin seemed like it's like,
yeah.
At the end of the match, he's like, damn, okay.
Did CM Punk have pants on in that match?
Yeah, that's when he broke out the long pants for the first time, and I was like, oh, this guy isn't ready, right?
Yeah.
But the second match against Powerhouse Hobbs, he had the trunks back, so I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember that match. That All Out match was kind of rough, if I remember.
And they had and that story was pretty good. Like CM Punk saying, like, if I was a kid now, I would root for Darby Allin. By me being an outcast personally, I would root for the guy who's punk rock and straight edge and a skateboarder and marches to the beat of his own drum. And that's one of the aspects I enjoy. I mean, I'm not fully fledged in the punk rock lifestyle, but there are things I'm fond of when it comes to that. Like being the son of a skateboarder, that kind of carried on to me.
Peace to every day, all day.
Well, he'll be on here sooner rather than later, but yeah, he'll talk about breaking hips and and elbows and things.
He's looking at his hip right now. I was like, God damn.
Yeah.
God damn.
But the more obvious feud was once Jeff Hardy showed up, it was again like, so Darby Allin has famously been compared to Jeff Hardy since the start of his tenure in AEW. He's just Jeff Hardy for the new generation with the face paint and the crazy dives, the reckless abandonment.
Right.
My God, he's broken in half. Damn it. Like, this young man, he's only 27. He's got a whole life ahead of him. Like,
Jesus.
And then what happens when he faces Jeff Hardy? He jumps off the tallest ladder onto like 10 chairs.
Yeah.
And somehow still lived. I don't get it.
The chairs were I guess I should probably find a picture, but it was like a bed
pointed to each other. Yeah, it was like
I don't understand why that spot was, because they had done another spot another time, right?
When they teamed up. No, Jeff Hardy did the swanton off the like the landing in that arena.
Yeah, into the it was into a bunch of boxes or something.
Yeah, whenever they faced, I think it was the Andrade Hardy family office that might have happened, but when they faced each other 1-on-1, again, I think it was a regular match, but they didn't do like any countouts or disqualifications. Like,
yeah,
I think they just
hold on. I'm actually the internet makes things so.
Unless they might have changed the rules. They're like, we're gonna for this match only. We're in this Owen Hart tournament. We're allowing no DQs and
it was weird. But I mean, I
think they knew like there's only one way for this match to happen, and that's Jeff Hardy and Darby trying to outstun each other.
Not too many matches where the referee is holding the ladder so clearly.
Well, when you have the tall ladder, the ref always has to hold it just because.
But Jesus Christ, like, you know, it was so necessary to get this spot off that you had to get that shot.
Well, don't forget, like Jeff Hardy just like a matador just moves out the way.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing. It turns that's the bad part, because like after all this, the whole setup and they were already brawling, and you get to this spot and it's like that's a tall ladder. That's a much taller.
Yeah.
We end up with this. Like Jeff Hardy's under there somewhere, but Darby Allin ate chair. He ate chair on the way down. Ridiculous.
Oh God. The stairway to heaven ladder, yeah.
Look at how high up he was.
Yeah, it's can you take me higher?
Nope. Nope. He's lucky.
That's back to reality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's back to reality right there. Jesus Christ, man.
And is that really one of the points of criticism for you? And like, I don't like Darby Allin matches because it is like why are you doing this to yourself? Like you don't have to do these crazy stunts. I don't think you're fond of the crazy stunts in wrestling, right?
Oh, it's one of those things where when I was watching wrestling and you see like there's certain things you see, like if you go somewhere and someone's making food and like you go in there and like it's like mad spices, like it smells like the inside of someone's like herbs and spices closet. Sometimes you think they're a good cook, sometimes like, oh, maybe they're masking the fact that they don't know what they're talking about. When I would like ECW and stuff like that, Mikey Whipwreck matches, he wasn't supposed to be a pro wrestler. Shane McMahon, they're not supposed to be pro wrestling, but they're the ones that are getting on. They have to do the theatrics to jump off the ladder and cause the big commotion, so you can be like, "Holy shit!" and put them over. When really they just did a big ass stunt off a ladder. Darby Allin is clearly better than this. He doesn't have to do this to prove that he can go with the big dog. And I don't need to keep seeing him do this type of stuff to feel like he's he's earned his spot in the Pillars. I don't think it needs to work like that.
Well, he's the only guy in the Pillars who's going to do the likes of that. And I mean, and Jungle Boy try to do like a look what I can do when he jumped off the top of the cage, but that's the only time he's come. Oh,
Sammy Guevara does, but he's not.
Oh, yeah, he leapfrogged the ladder to do the cutter on the Cody. Yeah, you're in the
Sammy.
You know what? You're right.
Sammy
I don't. Yeah, I should respect Sammy Guevara a little bit. Like he jumped off the he let Eddie Kingston gently push him off the top of Blood and Guts.
Right. Right, 100%. But yeah,
like that's the other argument I forgot. He is, and I think that's what Matt always said. Why when he would criticize Darby Allin, it is like because Matt would say like I saw Mikey Ripwreck. Mikey Ripwreck didn't do shit, and the whole point of his character, he would somehow eke out these wins by getting his ass kicked for 10 minutes, and then do a roll up. And again, Darby Allin will do the same thing. Like he'll trap your legs and then put you in the hold and put all his momentum. And pin you, and it's like, but he just had Ethan Page Ethan Page picked him up, threw him into the crowd. Like I saw Darby Allin versus Brody King in at Quake at the Lake, and again, like Brody King on paper chops the shit out of Darby Allin, and you hear it, and my dad just like, oh, like
yeah. I remember.
My dad
said
like when he sees Darby Allin, he's like, this guy's gonna kill himself. He's gonna like break his body, like.
That's
and my
the
dad
only
again
thing.
knows it by being a skateboarder, and Darby Allin does that on the side already. I mean, he's hung out with the likes of Tony Hawk and the Jackass crew and the.
Well, I think he's one of those, and I
circus crew. Like he's into the stunt man. Like
I respect. I totally because I get that that's his life and that's how he chooses. I none of that aspect doesn't
live
bother
your life.
me. Do you like for real?
That's all you, pal. That's
the thing is, it's just like I do want to watch pro wrestling though, and I do.
Yeah, there's
like
a time
watching
and a place
a show.
for it.
I don't want to always see somebody almost like break their back or snap their leg in half off of a move that does nothing for the match. Because like we're talking about this now. But it's not to be like, oh, that shit was amazing. Do you remember when he hit that hard move and like they're cheering?
We only talk about it now because that's the only time him and Jeff Hardy have faced off. It's like if they didn't do that during the match, it would be like, well, it was a waste. They didn't how we always talk about how these missed opportunities with they botched this matchup because they didn't do this or whatever. Like,
be careful what you wish for.
If him and Jeff Hardy didn't do one crazy stunt, it would have not delivered the high expectations that we always have as wrestling.
I get it.
And that's why when we record on the day of the Royal Rumble, I'm like. People are saying, oh, I love the Royal Rumble so much. I'm like, no, you love the surprises. And then when there aren't any surprises, you get let down. That's why everyone hated last year's Rumble because there were no surprises. But it's like that. Point. Oh, I know. It's that thing where you want so much. And I think people do like high spots. But at the end of the day, we, as people do have the 5-second reaction, like, don't do that because you might be crippled for the rest of your life. And we want the joy of like, oh shit, and then in a good way, and then not the oh shit right after.
Yeah, we don't want the.
Now that we see the likes of someone like Mick Foley and how he lives his life now versus in '98, whatever, it's like do that shit again. Like,
what was I watching where they threw up the X and it was a bullshit?
Oh, it was the Jim Uso this Monday. That was a storyline X when Jimmy Uso did the dive to the outside.
I got worked. I did not want to see that.
Yeah, that was a clear one because the whole point of like Sami Zayn being around for them to say like.
I figured Sami Zayn was going to cheat to win. I wasn't booking an Uso getting stretchered out so Sammy because they had to do the whole hokey. Oh, are you sure you want him to be? He's going to have all the right to the tag.
Well, that's why when they milked it, it was like, oh, we know where this is going. But because they throw up their X, you think, oh, he's hurt for real. But if they milk it for that long, it's like, oh, he's not hurt at all. This is how the match was supposed to go.
I'm so concerned. Like when Seth had that match with Austin Theory, was it Austin Theory?
Oh, about his knee, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was so concerned because
that's when we talked about Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. That was the worst one. Like he clotheslined him, and the refs like stop, and he's like, and then they had to buy 8 minutes of TV of like
that was rough.
Hangman Page isn't getting enough, folks. We might have to.
But see, we were talking last week. That's why I will keep. I'll usually for like WWE. Well, I think I actually record them all at this point. I usually on my Hulu. I could go on there and do like the hour and a half Raw if I want to, but I keep the DVR recording for stuff like that because I had to watch back and see how awkward it was for them to figure out what the fuck to do or show or talk about in the show when the main event ends 8 minutes early because one of the guys is fucking knocked off his socks. But it's I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Is there criticism for Darby Allin and the stunts versus the hard hitting wrestling? You know what I mean? Like how there's that cautiousness and like, oh, don't hit each other too hard, but we like when they're throwing the forearms and the stiff kicks and the stiff elbows and punches, but then like don't do the crazy stunts. Is there a medium between the two, or?
I think if you're gonna do, my thing is if you're gonna do a crazy stunt, I feel like it should be necessary to the match, or it should like as much as the Hell in a Cell, throwing off the cage, throwing through the top of the cage stuff is memorable. Like that was frightening. Like if you go back and go through the stories,
legit thinks he's not getting up. Like
they've got people, and mind you, you've got people coming to the ring while the show's going on. Mick Foley is blacked out, shouldn't be wrestling, but still wants to, and they have to keep going through with the stuff. Like that stuff, you can get memorable moments, but that stuff is scary as fuck when you really think about it. And that's the stuff I'm fine with controlled chaos. I'm fine with people testing their bodies and going to the limit. I watch Bryan Danielson matches. That's his MO.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, so you would rather see people work stiff knowing that I'm hitting you harder than I should versus someone doing a crazy stunt where like there's more room for error than hitting someone too hard.
It's all right. It's like this. It's like I watch boxing.
Yeah.
I understand that the boxers understand that if one of them hits the other one too hard, they could potentially die. Like, you know, these things could happen. And I'm okay with watching boxing.
You're trying to win too, so you have to hit someone as hard as you can to knock this dude out, or for them to give up.
Like, this is all in the rules, though, right? Like, this is how the sport's set up. Pro wrestling is a little different. Sure, you could have a tables, ladders, and chairs match where you're expecting these dives and things like that to go on. Just because the two guys who do the dives and everything in every other match are in a match in a tournament for Owen Hart. I don't know if I necessarily need the extra tall ladder spot because again, that wasn't even the end of the match, was it? How did that match end?
No, I think they did that almost right away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there was. I'll go back. I could go back and watch, but I do not remember there being it being so vital that he jumped off a ladder.
That match was short too. I think that match would have been like 9 or 10 minutes, and they did
it was short.
I think they did like 4 minutes in, but again, like you said, like this didn't need to be in the tournament. In the tournament, they could have done this standalone, where like neither of them had to be in the tournament. They could just be like Jeff Hardy. Everyone says I'm the new you. I challenge you to
make a storyline.
Yeah,
they could have done anything.
But this is why Booker of the Year Tony Khan isn't as good as people say he is. I'm sorry.
I think it's the whole grand scheme of it. In that context, it seemed very
forced.
Very forced, very try-hardy. Like, you know, let's make sure that we give them this moment.
Because now that these two are in the same company, they have to have the dream match of like, again, people go on Twitter, be like, what's the match you want to see? Jeff Hardy, Darby Allin. Because what are they going to do? One's going to jump off the highest shit, and the other's going to be like, watch this.
Make it count, though. Make it build to a real anarchy in the arena between the two of them. Make it build to something that it's like a match that only the two of them can be into. The two of them wrestling in a tournament and doing these ridiculous stunts in like the semifinals or the quarterfinals or whatever. It was a little too try-hardy for me. That's the type of stuff I try and shy away from because it's stunts for stunts' sake, and I would at least like to have a little. If it's gonna look dope, let it be dope. If you're gonna do it just to do it, at least have it be part of something. So it's not just I felt like jumping off some high shit today.
Well, that's why when Darby does have a feud, it is smart to end with the coffin match, his go-to match, the likes of Ethan Page, Brody King. I don't know if him and Andrade had one, but
no, that makes sense. I am in agreement with that 100%.
Yeah, and so it's his go-to match, and again, it almost always ends the same way. He coffin dropped Ethan Page into the coffin.
Right.
That was a pretty dope spot. But yeah, as we kind of talked, and we'll be wrapping up pretty soon, but him as a character and wrestler fits where, again, his arsenal is himself. So
yes,
he is the embodiment of a human weapon, much like Shane McMahon, who you brought up. And when we talked about Shane McMahon a few months ago, you're like, Trip, why do you like Shane McMahon? I'm like, well, Shane McMahon on the flip side, again, is that opposite of Darby Allin, where he's the rich kid who's trying to prove how tough he is. Darby Allin is the outcast kid who's trying to prove how tough he is, right?
No, yeah, I can fuck with you punk rock kids. Watch this.
Yeah, no, Shane McMahon's like, they're like daddy's boy, and he's like, I'll show you fucking daddy's boy, and then like drives his car off the fucking cliff, and he survives, and they're like, whoa, man, and he's like, fuck yeah, like,
fuck yeah, I told you I did it. Now fight.
Darby Allin's just like, I do this shit every day. Like,
yeah, I wrecked 14 cars last week, bro.
Yeah,
gee, I don't have a father anyway. Well, I'm saying like that's how it is. It's always the haves and the have-nots.
I think Shane McMahon would say, I don't have a father either.
No, I'm saying that's what Darby would say, but I'm like, that's the movie version, right? It's got to be like, well, I wrecked my dad's car last week. Well, I wrecked 14, and I've not seen my dad in 20 years. Or whatever.
Oh no, it's Breakfast Club.
Yeah, no, 1,000%.
It's who has a father who's a hard ass, and Judd Nelson, who's like, my dad put cigarettes out on me. Like,
so that'll be MJF Darby when they finally get to that point. It'll be Emilio versus Judd, right?
I think we might have to go for a different type of, because that's the thing about the Darby Allin. I don't want to use the term that has been described with him. There's a certain person in school who has a vibe that Darby Allin allegedly has to people on Twitter.
Right.
I don't like talking about stuff like that because it's too dark. But again, he is this outcast in the room again with like the torn shorts and the Doc Martens. And again, he skateboards everywhere. And what's he do? He'll fuck you up with that skateboard. Like when he puts the tacks on the skateboard and uses it as a weapon, that's his equivalent to Sting's black bat when he became Crow's Sting. And that's, again, I think it was smart to pair the two together that way. They have this weapon to even the playing field when they have to face the bigger guys, the stronger guys. But Darby Allin and MJF, when they feud, it definitely is the rich kid picking on the outcast and getting stabbed because he fucked around and found out. Like,
let's drive to the trailer park.
But we already discussed this when we talked about MJF, and the great match that MJF had with Darby Allin at Full Gear in 2021 is in part to the chemistry they have, and MJF had to put on his working boots for that night and that night only against Darby Allin. And I hope he can reignite that flame in MJF, who's just a disappointment in the last 6 months with everything since he came back and that's a whole nother story. But
I'm not disappointed because I knew what was going on.
Oh yeah, but I mean, in terms of like,
I feel you.
You talked the biggest game, and not only did you not deliver, it's like, God, like this is like they signed the guy to the big contract and he gets injured the second game. It's like, ooh, you might as well.
Exit stage left, even. Yeah, nah, for real.
And by being a fighting champion, AEW always have these wrestlers that can't be trapped in a story, or because they're being misused. I think Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin being these fighting champions has strengthened AEW more than anything else, because again, MJF, by being these long drawn out stories, just kills the momentum. As much as we'll love to see Danielson, Takeshita, Danielson, Bandito, even Brian Cage, the whole story of that is Brian Danielson being Sisyphus, to bring it back to the Gray Man and into history, and not history, Greek mythology is what I should say. And the hurdles, as we always discuss, that MJF has to put his opponents through, whether it was Cody or Chris Jericho with the Labors of Love. I mean, to face MJF, you have to do this, this, and this. Whereas to face Darby Allin or Orange Cassidy, they're like, you want to fight? Orange Cassidy literally shows up and it's like, you want a match? I'll give you a match. Like,
down to fight? Let's fight. Let's go.
And Darby Allin's the same thing. Like, when he cut the promo to set up the Buddy Matthews match, he's like, we had history, House of Black, I had history of Malachi Black and Brody King, but you and I, Buddy Matthews, we haven't settled this yet. There's still blood that needs to be drawn before this is wrapped up for good, and that's why they had this match. And Samoa Joe came back this week to say, Darby Allin, you took what was mine, I'm going to take it back again. That's kind of the only real. It's like what they're saying about that show Poker Face on Peacock, where Ryan Johnson's like, it's a case of the week story, but there kind of will be a long story drawn out in a way. I think that's what Darby Allin's doing right now with Samoa Joe being his potential next opponent is that Darby Allin, by dethroning Samoa Joe and being a fighting champion, Samoa Joe came back to be like, enjoy it while you can, because I'm coming back to get what's mine. He's still kind of this semi-big boss to what's a pit stop in Darby Allin's reign, because I don't know who will take it. I think Swerve Scott is a potential Swerve Strickland, I should say. I think he's a potential opponent or the throner of Darby Allin's reign, and there's some other people as well.
Does that mean we're at some point we're going to get a Sting and Rick Ross promo? They're going to be in a promo segment.
That would be interesting. I think.
Hey Stinger, you the biggest boss. Hey Stinger, this is not an accusation. I'm sorry, I don't have a good Rick Ross voice.
Use a bad accusation. Sting, you's a bad motherfucker.
Jesus Christ, you an old motherfucker.
Yeah, that too. Imagine if I showed up. Should I have shown up to this episode with the Darby Allin half face paint? Would you have been freaked out like that?
I would have been awkward. I would have been confused. I would have been like,
what if I started dressing up for these
I would have said, boop. All right, Drip, what's going on with you?
For these wrestler deep dives that we've done, like for the Ricky Starks one, I should have showed up with like the open button shirt.
I would have to log off.
When we talk about Sasha Banks next month, I'll show up with the rings and I'll have a wig. I mean, Mercedes Moné, I should say.
Don't show with any ring. Don't no wig. No, don't do nothing like that. Because I'll be looking at you like, what the hell is going on here?
What the fuck?
Sheesh. Anyway,
but no, I think again, Darby Allin, he's been one of my favorites. I know I'm on an island with a lot of my favorites that we've talked about. The Jay Whites, the Adam Coles on BRP. No one. Maybe Fam's kind of the only one who's in the middle because Fam always tries to play both sides pretty well.
Damn, Bandana Cole is back apparently.
That did you want to talk about that? How?
That's weird. That's weird.
She said she likes tiny men. I was like, "Hey, motherfucker, that's
weird."
Hey,
well, all right, so
you talking about my people? Like,
Adam Cole's got a bandana on, and
Adam Cole. That's one reason I hate him. I hated Adam Cole when I first saw him.
Because of the bandana.
Like, yeah, like you look like a fucking idiot. Like when I first saw him in PWG and ROH, like he would be backstage in a tank top with these bandanas on. I'm like, this looks. Weird. This is like the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Like, I don't get it, man. Like,
what did Britt Baker's? Oh, you get
y'all in trouble, yeah.
Yeah, y'all. Bandana Cole is back. Y'all in trouble,
baby. Like bandana, baby.
And then Jordan Grace tweets, "Oh, I thought that said banana Cole," and I was thinking about something else. I like teeny men. She's married to another wrestler. This isn't weird to anybody.
It is, but we don't want to talk about it. I mean, we've already talked about it too much, but it is weird.
Anyway,
I think we're just known to leave the likes of that alone.
It was all it got shared to me, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with it's just too awkward, and I'm surprised. I'm waiting to. If you told me Gresham, was seen storming out of a restaurant after argument over the tweet, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't know.
We talked about Adam Cole prior. Check out that episode in White Noise when we had Math on. And him to be like, Adam Cole sucks. He's not good. He was never any good. Y'all called him Shawn Michaels when he wasn't.
You mean Cole Corver?
Cole Corver, yeah. I mean, that's why I joked on Thursday's episode on Black Wrestling Proper that I should have. I'm like, Math, you're going to do this recording with us. If he had done the Darby Allin recording, he would have been the same. Like, he's Mikey Whipwreck. That's it. He would have been like, he's Shane McMahon. Without the money.
A glorified stuntman. Nah, I mean,
as I said with Shane McMahon, sometimes you need the glorified stuntman. Even then, like, Shane McMahon can go, Darby Allin can go a lot more than Shane McMahon can.
Yeah, that's correct. But I think you're right. Everybody plays their part, and sometimes you need to have the stuntman out there, just like you've got the superstar. But the superstar don't need to be the stuntman all the time. Like, if Darby Allin is one of those four, you got to have two legs to stand, bro.
The pillar. Again, this man is the pillar, in my opinion.
He looked like he about to put
I think he's on a different type of pillar, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
With that pose.
on that. Jesus Christ, Trip.
I mean, in skateboarding, they have the Christ air move when you're up in the air.
Oh, no, I get it. Trust me. Yeah, that was this. That was this right here. And then there was it. Anyway. But
what other thing? Oh, did you watch The Last of Us episode 2?
I need to catch up on everything.
Okay. It was a good episode. It really encapsulated the tension and intensity of them out and about, and like watch your every move when you're in the ruins of the city without, like these things can be anywhere. And when they say like the wrong step can attract them, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean the wrong step?
That's literally what it is, right? Because that's in the game though, because there are different types of monsters. You have to learn how to navigate each one. If you're on the Patreon and you're watching The Last of Us, the episode that's dropping the day that this drops is supposed a lot of I've not watched it. A lot of critics
that is the third episode that has been rumored as being the best episode of TV in a while.
Not just the best episode of 2023. People are specifically saying this is the best episode of television I've seen in God knows how long.
With Nick Offerman.
With Nick Offerman,
but Nick Offerman is that guy, so I'm not too surprised to hear that his episode is being talked about as one of the best.
We'll see. Maybe we could talk about that. By the time, if you watch this on YouTube, by the time you see it, that episode would have already happened. I don't always have the best luck with
catching up.
Well, not that, but also getting responses when I ask for things. I don't know, like I give people prompts, but people have to be watching to get the prompts. But if y'all are watching Last of Us, this is probably one of the best shows to talk about that. So if you're watching, let us know in the comments, either on YouTube or on Patreon, so we can maybe get deep into the fungus.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the first two episodes. I thought it's been great. Again, Pedro Pascal's killing it. And this week they dropped the season 4 trailer for Succession. Did you check that out?
I did not. I need that.
Okay.
That would have been a good off-white. Maybe next time. Maybe the fuck is going on? Maybe I won't watch it until
I was almost gonna hit you up about doing what do we call it? The trailer trash.
We could do another trailer trash, yeah.
Because they also dropped Shazam, Fury of the Gods.
Mm-hmm.
And what other trailer? That We Have a Ghost movie that we talked about last week for Netflix. The one about, but there wasn't much on that. I mean, I don't know if you want to watch the Dungeons and Dragons trailer.
I've seen
that movie doesn't look too bad, if I'm being honest. But
it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look like something I want to watch either way.
Yeah, that was my exact thing. I'm like, this doesn't look awful, but I'm like, I don't know if I'll watch this movie. But
no desire whatsoever. But there's a new trailer. I saw I've seen a trailer for that in the theaters. There's a new one for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, maybe we'll have to we'll have to see what schedules are and do a trailer trash at some point.
The other thing before we wrap up, I always try to kind of do these closing bits for anything.
Maybe this the gauntlet. We running the gauntlet right now. Like Darby ran the gauntlet anyway.
But yeah, we'll be back next week. What will we talk about next week? I know what we'll be talking about in a few weeks. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl trailers, because that's going to be a big deal when the Super Bowl happens. We'll get a Fast 10 trailer. Hopefully, some other big movie trailers. Maybe some superhero movies that haven't shown us anything yet. And all that. And again, I want to do a Sasha Banks / Mercedes Moné episode once that Battle in the Valley match has happened. I want to talk about her career in WWE, NXT, and then what her future looks like. So we got some big things planned. But yeah.
Word. No, that sounds good. I'm down with all of that. Drip. Was that it? Are we done?
Yeah, that's it for this weekend. Like Darby Allin, the pillar of AEW. Hopefully he'll be the man to dethrone MJF and become AEW World Champion, the skater boy of AEW.
If Tony Khan is daring to be different, this is probably one of the best times to be different.
Hey, at some point, Vince McMahon realized that Jeff Hardy, he has to be champion. I mean, unfortunately, Jeff Hardy sabotaged himself in a way. But
right. All facts. Super duper facts. All right, Joe. We got a Rumble to watch. So
I will say this. If Jay White shows up tonight, that might be next week's episode. I won't even show up to Thursday's episode to talk about it.
Yes, Jay White. Let's actually, yeah. Since this may be Drip's last time on anything BRP, let's do a quick.
Not any. I'm just saying, like, if Jay White does show up tonight on the Rumble,
Jay White. What happens when you search Jay White? What's the latest on Jay White on
They
Twitter?
had the funny thing was that BT Sport WWE account said the 5 things we'd like to see at the Rumble, and one of them was like a Jay White appearance. But don't forget, in 2017, right before that Rumble, they asked the wrestlers who would they like to see enter the Royal Rumble, and Seth Rollins said Kenny Omega.
Yeah, they were after
So
AJ. That was the hype, right?
Well, it's the thing, like they will sometimes acknowledge the outside world,
right?
Like that. So hearing that Jay White, because at that time, I think Kenny Omega was still undecided about sticking around or not.
Exactly.
Just like it's being rumored how Jay White, he hasn't chosen WWE, but it seems like he hasn't chosen to stick with New Japan. So there's still some hope he can show up in AEW. That's the real man to throw in AEW. I mean, to throw MJF in AEW. But that's if he shows up tomorrow, I'll do next week. I'll do what Jay White could have been in AEW. Like what we could have had. Like
there's a tweet from a couple of hours before we recorded this that says that New Japan sources state that Jay White will still be under contract with them as of the Royal Rumble. Which
that's what we've said. But they allowed Carl Anderson to go to Wrestle Kingdom, and these dates with New Japan are already locked in. It's just nothing more is coming out after that. So like New Japan really, they could be a dickhead about, hey, you can't do anything in between. But Jay White's also like, I'm not doing anything after these matches. So like, just let me do what I want. And I'm still going to stick to this match against Hikuleo and then this other match against Eddie Kingston that he has on the horizon. So
I guess we'll see, bro.
But you can find me on Twitter at Davis, aka Drip, Instagram, Davis Golden DC, live every Thursday on YouTube, Black Wrestling Proper. Mimi, Tham, Math, Cal, and myself talking about that week's wrestling and a whole bunch of other tangents and nonsense, insight, entertainment, as Fam always says.
Big facts, super deep.
Also, we have Black Watch on the Patreon. Make sure you check that out. Bulls in the China Shop of Venice and Pervivi. Something else. I almost said somebody else. Somebody else. They could have maybe gone with somebody else. That would have made sense because they're talking to somebody else, the other side of the rest.
This man.
Should I do the spinoff? Somebody else?
No, we don't need somebody. Jesus.
Oh, real quick, before you plug Cal, did you see You People?
I've not watched it yet. I need to watch it though.
So Banks was right that this movie is about my life because Jonah Hill is a podcaster in this movie. So he is a white man who had blondish hair like I did last summer. Abstract tattoos, as Sky Eve said I had.
Podding.
And he's podding with Sam J.
They're a pod.
They're friends and podcasters, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I need to watch.
But he tells this girl he's on a date with that he's he's like, you'll laugh, and she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, me and my homie, we have a podcast, and she's like, well, what do you talk about? He's like, we talk about the culture, and I'm like,
the culture,
and I'm like, oh my god,
this is Drip.
I'm like, why and again, and just somehow Lauren London falls for it, and I'm
ain't no wrong with that, man.
And I'm like, this movie, and I'm like, does Kenya Barris spy on me like other people?
Kenya's the homie. No, I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Eddie Murphy was pretty good in it. It's a horrible movie though. To be honest, it's bad.
I will say this. I heard.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
Before, so I mean, I'm gonna watch and support, but I'm not expecting a lot at all, except for some laughs. Anyway, I'm at Cal.
Where can the people find you? Yeah.
At Cal on Twitter, at Black Wrestling on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're listening the weekend of the Royal Rumble, I am on the latest episode of Wrestle Rap. Shouts to Vin. We talked about there being too many wrestling belts and a bunch of other stuff. I forget. It was we kind of just hit record and had a conversation, but it was cool.
I'm gonna have Vin on here soon. Yeah, he messaged me in the last couple weeks. I said, but I always tell you, I try to have guests on to fit the topic.
No, you just gotta get the right one, man.
And that thing with Vin, I'm like, we could do so much. So one day it'll hit me like this will be the topic. Too many belts.
Too many. I mean, there's a lot of belts out there. YouTube.com/Black Wrestling, Patreon.com/Black Wrestling. Again, shouts to y'all. Y'all the ones that make shows like this possible. Because you're paying the $1 or you're paying the $10 to get all this type of BRP content. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for your support. Thanks for you watching. Hit the like on this wherever you're watching it, so we know that you actually enjoy watching this content. And we'll check y'all out next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick.